To everybody to the Apex Town Council meeting. This is the scheduled meeting 7th time. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to be here to conduct the business of the town, to represent the citizens, and to do the things that we do to make our quality of life better in Apex. We pray that at this time you'll give us the guidance and the wisdom that you feel necessary for us to make the smart decisions. We pray for those who are fighting overseas, whether they be helping other countries or fighting for our freedom here in America. And we also thank you for those who have made the sacrifice of their health or life on our behalf. We pray all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. A couple of housekeeping issues that I usually handle early on. If you missed an agenda from the podium out there, feel free to step out right now and pick one up. There's also a yellow sheet for public speaking guideline policy. So if you intend to speak tonight, there are two things you need to know. One is that yellow sheet tells you the policy, the guidelines for how to do that. So you can be familiarizing yourself with that for the next few minutes. The other is your name needs to be on one of these yellow sheets on the ledge here. So if you have not signed up for the thing that you intend to speak, and they're numbered, so make sure you sign up for the correct one, come do that now and go get your sheet out there. Feel free to do that at this time if you need to. With that, I'd like to begin our presentations, and to introduce our speaker for the first presentation here, we have our Finance Director, Vance Holloman.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. This evening, we're very fortunate to have with us Ms. Bernita Demery, who is the Director of Financial Services for the City of Greenville, North Carolina. Bernita has been there for since 1989, and she has approximately 30 years' experience in local government finance. She is a CPA, has her Master's in Business Administration from East Carolina University. And tonight she is here in her capacity as a state representative of the Governmental Finance Officers Association.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It is an honor to be before you tonight to present on behalf of the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The Government Finance Officers Association established the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting in 1945 to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements to present comprehensive financial reports with 10 years of statistical data that ensures that readers have reliable information for decision making. And where would more decisions be made about the town of Apex than right here? In this program, the report was submitted to the CAFA program and reviewed by GFOA Reviewers Special Committee, comprised of public sector financial reporting experts, financial statement preparers, independent auditors, and academic and other finance professionals. The government that participates in the Certificate of Achievement are asked to submit their reports within 6 months of fiscal year end and undergo this extensive GFOA review process. The program results are for the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended 2016. And so with that, would you, Mr. Vance Holloman and Ms. Suzanne Parmenter, Mr. Holloman, as you know, is the finance officer, and Ms. Suzanne is the accounting and budget manager. So on behalf of the Government Finance Officers Association, I present to you the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the town of Apex, but as a result of your hard work, for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2016, Jeffrey Esser, Executive Director and CEO. Congratulations.
Well, if I could maybe just make some brief remarks.
Sure.
I want to first thank the council and management for their support for us in these efforts. It would not be possible without that. Suzanne just does, I'm just up here, standing around. Suzanne does just so much work on this and does such a great job and makes it possible. It wouldn't be possible without her and her effort. And town staff throughout every department, really. It's not just the finance department, but every department contributes to the audit and to the comprehensive annual financial reports. It's really a town-wide effort, and just want to thank everyone for their work.
Thank you.
All right. And certainly that's a great achievement, and as someone who's elected, and I think I can speak for the council members, we're always very cognizant and proud to know that our town's finances are in good order, because we know not all municipalities in this country have that. So thank you very much. For presentation number 2, Chief John Letney and Mr. Travis Parrish have a presentation today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Manager, staff, citizens. We're here before you tonight to accept our second accreditation award from the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. We began this journey many years ago when then Chief Jack Lewis had the vision to prepare the department to be accredited. We underwent our first assessment and earned our initial accreditation in 2014. Since then, we've maintained compliance with the standards and were assessed earlier this year. I'd like to introduce our CLIA representative, the Director of Client Services, Travis Parrish. As Director, Mr. Parrish's primary responsibility is to ensure positive client engagement and the accreditation success for the CLIA program. Working with 7 regional program managers, Mr. Parrish and the RPM team educate agencies on the value of CLIA accreditation, while also working with CLIA client agencies to achieve and maintain their CLIA accredited status. Travis is a long-standing member of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, where he serves as a member of the Community Policing Committee and is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. Mr. Parrish.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, council members, Apex residents, and guests. On behalf of the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, the Commission Chair, Richard Myers, and Executive Director, Mr. Craig Hartley, CLIA is honored to be here recognizing your protectors of the peak. To provide a little background, CLIA was created in 1979 when the founding organizations, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the National Sheriff's Association, and the Police Executive Research Forum, recognized the need within the law enforcement community to develop professional standards to enhance the delivery of police services to citizens throughout the community they serve. Since its inception, CLIA has accredited agencies under standards developed by many of the top public safety practitioners and leaders of our time. The standards are reviewed continuously to ensure each is current and remains relevant. These standards cover a wide range of administrative, operational, and logistical issues and serve as a modern management model that provides the framework for recognizing professional excellence within public safety. In a time when public safety is being scrutinized, the Apex community leaders and citizens should take comfort in the fact that its police department has voluntarily committed to operating at a higher level and under a set of nearly 500 rigorous standards. The goals of CLIA are to strengthen crime prevention and control capabilities, formalize essential management procedures, establish fair and non-discriminatory personnel practices, improve service delivery, solidify interagency cooperation and coordination, and increase community and staff confidence in the agency. Based on the goals and mission statement of CALEA, I can think of no better time or place to present this accreditation certificate to the agency than at a public meeting, where all can share and recognize the hard work this agency has committed to remaining accredited. The certificate itself is simply a matted piece of paper within a frame, but it has much broader symbolic meaning. The certificate clearly represents the agency's efforts to achieve accredited status, thereby demonstrating its willingness to change in order to effectively address contemporary public safety concerns. It represents a commitment to doing the right thing and doing it the right way. Lastly, it represents an ongoing dedication to ensuring the agency's resources are appropriately developed, effectively deployed, and constantly managed, all in the name of a safer community for workers, visitors, and customers. In March of this year, CALEA assessors visited the Apex Police Department and reviewed the agency's applicable files, activities, functional impacts, and management strategies. During the agency's open comment period, several peer agencies and community leaders submitted extremely positive comments regarding the agency's professionalism and exceptional leadership. I'd like to share some words from the assessor's final report. The Apex Police Department is providing a high level of service to the community it serves. This excellence was reflected not just through file review, but through the actions of the agency, personnel, and the support of the citizens. The agency has achieved widespread support for the CALEA process, demonstrated by the cooperativeness of all staff members and personnel of the agency with the assessment team. All interactions with agency employees were positive, and the assessment team found the agency to be professional in all respects in the performance of their duties. At the Commission meeting held in Providence, Rhode Island, July 29, 2017, CALEA commissioners reviewed the assessor's report, concurred with their findings, and unanimously voted to reaccredit Apex Police Department. At this time, sir, I'd like to present the certificate to Chief Letney. Be it hereby known that Apex Police Department, having fully demonstrated its voluntary commitment to law enforcement excellence by living up to a body of standards deemed essential to the protection of the life, health, and safety and rights of the citizens it serves, and having exemplified the best professional practices in the conduct of its responsibilities, is hereby, upon the recommendation of the members of the Commission, awarded this certificate of advanced accreditation, effective on the 26th day of July 2017, and is recognized as an accredited law enforcement agency for a period of 4 years. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish, and also please pass along my thanks to the CALEA staff who continue to assist us in this process. Since our assessment, we believe the accreditation process could be used as a management tool to provide a proven system for achieving a level of efficiency that can be measured, assessed, and maintained. During our first period of accreditation, we found it to be just that. It has become a blueprint to ensure that the Apex Police Department is at the forefront of the best practices in our profession, that we achieve the level of professionalism and service delivery we're capable of, and maintain that level as the needs of our rapidly growing community change. We are proud to be able to provide assurance to our community that the Apex Police Department meets and in many cases exceeds the professional standards of law enforcement. And we're honored to be among the few accredited agencies in North Carolina, 54 to be exact, which is roughly 6% of the total law enforcement agencies. The achievement takes a great deal of work to develop policies and procedures and ensure that we show we're in compliance with all applicable standards. While it is the accomplishment of all department employees, as well as other town departments and our significant partners such as CAPA, Sergeant Matt Kutcher, our accreditation manager, was responsible to spearhead those efforts. I would like to thank him for his efforts and present this certificate of achievement from CALEA to Sergeant Kutcher. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. At this time, we move into the consent agenda. Consent agenda are items that are considered to be routine. They're typically enacted by a single motion. Any council member, if they so choose, can pull something for a later discussion, but they're typically considered to be non-controversial items and a matter of course. At this time, I'll ask the council if there's an item that they would like to pull for a later discussion, or if there is a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, motion and the second to approve. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay, that passes unanimously. This is the time where we set the regular meeting agenda. At this time, I'd like to point out the only thing I'm aware of, which is that public hearing number 2 has been withdrawn by the original requester. And at this time, it's my understanding that no action from the council is required. Is that correct, Lori? Okay. So public hearing number 2 will not happen tonight. Other than that, let me just ask the council if there are any other items that need to be shifted, or if I could have a motion to approve the agenda with that one change.
I would like to add something to old business, please. I would like to add an update on the Tunstall House Task Force.
Is there any objection? Any other items? Is there a motion?
Can I make the motion?
We approve?
All right, with the 2 items?
Yes.
All right, any discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, the meeting agenda is set. We now move into public hearing number 1. This time, the town clerk is collecting the yellow sheets. So hopefully, if you intended to speak on an item, you've signed up. Public hearing number 1, this is a possible motion for Horton Park, number 17CZ19, and Amanda Bunce is presenting. Thank you.
Good evening. 17CZ19 is a proposed rezoning of about 150 acres located on the north, the current terminus of Jesse Drive. Smith Road is located here. It does touch Smith Road, a small portion of this location. And just north of Colby Chase, the Marion subdivision and Pemberley subdivision. The property is heavily wooded and is bisected by a couple of streams in the Colonial Gas Pipeline. The current zoning of the property is RA on the north side and rural residential on the south. The proposed rezoning includes 2 zoning districts. The northern parcel, larger parcel to be rezoned, is requested for light industrial conditional zoning and is not a part of the PUD, which is the remainder of the request for this parcel, and then the remainder of this pinkish area, which is proposed for planning and development conditional zoning. The 2030 land use map designates the majority of the property as medium-density residential, noted in this light yellow area. The parcel to the north is designated as office employment, industrial employment, as is the majority of this parcel. This smaller parcel on the north side of Jesse Drive is designated as high-density residential currently, and finally, this parcel is designated as medium high-density residential. One parcel, this parcel here, is proposed for a 2030 land use map amendment. This portion of the property on the western end, which is 1.92 acres, is proposed to change to office employment, industrial employment. And the remainder of the parcel, which is 20.75 acres, is proposed to change to high-density residential. The applicant conducted their neighborhood meeting on March 22nd, and you have that report in your packet. So I'm going to summarize the uses that are proposed first. Pod 1, which is the LICZ portion, has a long list of proposed uses, which I will highlight a few. First of all, it is about 27.92 acres in size. Some of the uses are vet clinic, repair services limited, medical office, office business or professional, retail sales, automotive shop, body shop, automotive service station, repair and maintenance general, warehousing, wholesaling general, manufacturing and processing. There is also an architectural condition that ethos, cornices, and parapet trim may be used, and that ethos and stucco shall not be used within 4 feet of the ground and limited to no more than 25% of each building facade. Now I'm going to move into the portion of the property proposed for the PUD.
May I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah, right now. Right below the blue, it shows the same color as what they want for the high density. I didn't think that was high density, or that one right there.
There is if you'll notice, Pod 4 has a hatched pattern on it.
Okay.
So while it is the same color, the hatch mark is the distinguishing feature there.
Okay, so the one right below the blue is still medium density?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, in Pod 2, this is proposed to be a TechFlex non-residential pod. It is about 19.06 acres in size, and I'll highlight a few of the uses that are proposed. Daycare facility, vet clinic, vocational school, entertainment indoor, restaurant general, medical office, office professional, research facility, convenience store, grocery, pharmacy, repair services limited, microbrewery. The maximum height proposed in Pod 2 is 48 feet. Okay, going to talk about pods. I'll talk about Pod 4 next. Pod 4 is proposed for multifamily apartment use, townhouse or townhouse detached, also recreation facility private, as a highlight of the uses there. That pod is 20.99 acres in size. The maximum density proposed in that pod is, if developed as apartments, 314 apartment units, which is 15 dwelling units per acre. And the maximum building height would be 65 feet or 4 stories, not including any basement level.
What was the height? I'm sorry.
65 feet
65
or
feet.
4 stories, which would not include a basement level.
Okay.
If developed as townhomes, there would be a maximum of 125 townhomes, which is a maximum of 6 dwelling units per acre, and the maximum building height would be 40 feet. In pods 3 and 5, the proposed uses are single-family, townhouse detached, recreation facility, private. Parks are also a proposed use in the residential pods. If developed as through all the pods, if developed as townhomes, the maximum density is 6 dwelling units an acre. If developed as single family, the maximum single family density is 4 dwelling units per acre. So in Pod 3, which is about 4.5 acres in size, the maximum would be 27 townhomes or 18 single-family homes. In Pod 5, the maximum would be 118 townhomes or 78 single-family homes. For townhomes, there are 2 types of townhomes that are proposed, a Type 1 and a Type 2, which is proposed in Pods 3, 4, and 5, and those are front-loaded and rear-loaded townhomes.
Is there any requirement for either one?
There is not a requirement for either one for the townhomes. It's an option.
Okay, thank you.
For single-family, there are 4 types of single-family products that are proposed. And those, basically, the main difference is the lot width, minimum lot width, which the 4 types are 70-foot, 60-foot, 50-foot, and 40-foot wide product. Within There is a limitation for the 40-foot wide product known as Type S4 that any front entry units may have a one-car garage or no garage for each unit. Rear entry units may have a two-car garage for each unit.
Is there a limitation on how many no-car garages units they can have?
There is no limitation on that. The UDO allows parking to be met either in surface parking or in garage or driveway parking.
Yeah.
So it can be handled through one or a mixture.
I understand. I just thought they might have limits on what number of no garage.
No,
Okay.
there's no maximum
Okay.
to that. In pods 6, 7, and 8, these are all designated as single-family pods. So the total of those 3 pods is just under 57 acres, and the maximum between those 3 pods would be 227 single-family lots. That's a density of 4 dwelling units per acre. In Pod 8, which is at the southern end of the development, there is a limitation that the S4, the smallest lot product, would not be permitted within that pod. Within Pods 6 and 7, the S4 or 40-foot wide product would only be permitted along the collector streets. And then that means they would be rear-loaded. This graphic, let's see, I'm going to go to this chart, which highlights the buffers. For the most part, the buffers are the same as what's required by the UDO. There are instances where a greater buffer than what is required by the UDO is proposed. And then I've noticed if there's a difference, I've noticed that in italics underneath the proposed buffer type. This is on page 7 of your staff report. You can probably see it better than on the screen. And there are 6 areas where the buffer type has proposed to be reduced, and primarily that is along the parcels that are adjacent to the closed Sorrel landfill. And so generally speaking, that buffer is about half of what's proposed, which is permitted by the UDO. And then along this western boundary of Pod 2, the required buffer type isn't known until the uses are developed, and so based on the intensity of the uses that actually develop there, and so that's noted. It's either the same or about half of what's required by the UDO, and again, that just depends.
Yeah, I thought on the UDO that for residential, we pushed for Type A, and I noticed there's a lot of Type D buffers.
Well, the
I think
Type
that's
D,
why is that?
the Type Ds are along the collector streets
Yes.
where the product is rear-loaded.
Okay, it has to be rear-loaded then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There are instances where Type A has proposed to be reduced to a Type B. There's a lot of existing vegetation in this area to consider with that. Generally speaking, along the streets, we have the 10-foot Type A buffer, but there is a note that where there is a rear-loaded product, the opacity can be reduced to a 10-foot buffer. And then there is a 20-foot Type B buffer along the southern boundary of this east-west collector street that increases to 30 feet in this section along the Beck property.
Okay.
The required amount of RCA for the PUD is 20%, which the applicant has provided. In addition, they have stated that they will provide the additional 10% in any single-family section that is mass graded, and that's consistent with the UDO. Just to review some of these, this is a highlight of the single-family elevations that are proposed, and generally speaking, the elevations are the architectural standards are consistent with our standard conditions, requiring a raised foundation of 20 inches. The garage cannot protrude more than 1 foot out from the front facade or front porch. Eaves shall project at least 12 inches from the wall of the structure, requiring a varied color palette, and requiring front porches be a minimum of 6 feet deep. For townhomes, again, a lot of our typical architectural standards that we see, having a raised foundation of at least 12 inches. Roof line cannot be a single mass. It must be broken up horizontally or vertically between units. The garage cannot protrude more than 1 foot out from the front facade, a varied color palette, and side entry end unit townhomes in highly visible locations shall provide a covered entry feature for each unit. So in the case of this elevation where this is a side entry unit, there will have to be a covered entry feature added to the side. Okay, and for the apartments, again, typical of what we've seen, we'll note that where there is a 4-story product, these breezeways will be enclosed because there will be elevators provided. So that would not be an open air.
Did the planning board ask to have those taken out or something, the breezeways?
They did. There is a condition that has been added to that effect.
Yeah.
Breezeways for the 4-story apartment elevation is to be enclosed for additional mechanical equipment or elevators.
All right.
Okay. This is a very detailed report, so I want to make sure go through this carefully. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Commission met on August 30th for this project, and they did recommend a fee in lieu. However, I want to go back to a map just to illustrate this. The Middle Creek Greenway corridor runs very close to this project, and the property sits at the western edge of the southeast land acquisition area. That's why the fee in lieu was recommended for this project. The staff would like the flexibility to continue working with the developer to find a way to connect the Middle Creek Greenway. In the event that a solution can be reached, the developer would construct that and receive credit against fees owed.
Our bond is supposed to, that's one of the things on the bond, right, is Middle Creek Greenway?
I believe it is, yes.
So
So if there was a portion of the Greenway that could be constructed as part of their development, then they would receive credit against the fees owed. So water, of course, will be extended to this from multiple directions. For sewer, the developer will have to construct a pump station. It will be the Middle Creek North Pump Station, located generally in this location on the north side of Colby Chase. This pump station will be fully funded by the development team and then reimbursed through separate developers' agreements.
How many gallons per day is this development going to use? Do you have any idea?
I do not have the answer to that question. The engineer may.
Okay.
And presumably this is going to use the old sewer treatment plant, not the old one, not the new one,
That's correct.
Mill Creek
Yeah.
one.
Okay. So now we're going to move into the traffic portion of the report.
Before we do, Amanda, could I ask a couple more questions? I'm sorry. Medium density versus high density, what is the density medium high density versus high density?
So,
Because we had medium high density there, and they want high density.
yes. So in the 2030 land use plan, medium high density is capped at 14 dwelling units per acre. The applicant is requesting 15. So the cap for high-density residential in the 2030 land use plan is 20 dwelling units
Yeah.
per acre. So really, they're just asking for that 1 dwelling unit per acre addition than what the medium-high would permit. So,
Okay, thank you.
okay, I'm going to summarize. Staff had several traffic capacity zoning conditions recommended for the PUD. The applicant has added all of those conditions to their PUD document, and I'm going to highlight these. There are a lot of road improvements off-site that are required, so I'm going to just go through these very quickly. There will be studying traffic signal timing modifications if necessary at the US 1 Center Street, Waterford Green Drive area. Constructing turn lanes. I'm going to go back. Sorry, I think using a map would be. Oh, it doesn't show it. Constructing turn lanes at US 1 ramps. Providing an additional through lane and merge length at 1010 and Reliance. At 1010 and Jesse, there would be turn lanes basically at every part of that existing intersection. and monitoring that intersection for a traffic signal. To highlight some of the other improvements, the developer will be constructing this east-west major collector street, generally in the location of where DeZola connects to Smith Road now. This north-south major collector is another road that the developer will be constructing. The Jesse Drive right-of-way, additional right-of-way width will be dedicated and road improvements made along Jesse Drive. At East William Street and Straywhite, which is off this map actually, down at Miramont, that intersection will be monitored for a traffic signal if warranted. And then the developer shall construct the connection of Colby Chase Drive from the Pemberley subdivision to the Marion subdivision and connect the north-south collector street to Colby Chase. The phasing in the PUD, in the PUD document it specifies 8 pods, which there are, as you see on this map, but it also specifies they could be developed in any order depending upon market conditions. Road improvements will factor into that phasing as well. The PUD also provides 2 options for residential development restrictions. So essentially this is a phasing. There's a major concern about the impact on the roadways, the timing of the 1010 road improvements. As you know, the state has a TIP project to widen 1010 road, but the start of that project is not until 2023, which was in the TIA the anticipated build-out date for this development. So there was concern among staff and others that this project could potentially be built out before that road project even began. So the developer has agreed to a phasing series of development restrictions based on phasing of road improvements. So the first phase would be no more than 200 lots shall be platted for single-family and townhomes or permits for apartment units or any combination thereof prior to the completion of the off-site road improvements identified within the traffic study and noted in Section 12 of the PUD text. This also includes the construction of the north-south collector from Jesse Drive to Colby Chase Drive, the Colby Chase connection from Marion to Pemberley, and the portion of the east-west major collector from the north-south collector to the access for the DeZola Street properties. So it's 200 units at the point that all of those road improvements are done. The next phase is that no more than 100 additional residential lots or apartment units can be constructed prior to the completion of additional through lanes associated with the 1010 widening project. So essentially 300 units until the 1010 project is completed. And then phase 3, all remaining residential lots shall not be platted for single family or townhomes or apartment units until the Jesse Drive extension from Highway 55 to 1010 Road has been let for construction. So option 2 is if Jesse Drive from Highway 55 to 1010 Road is a 2-lane roadway is completed, then all lots and units within Horton Park would be released for development. None of these development restrictions apply to the non-residential portion of the PUD.
So option 2 doesn't matter on 1010 Road, only Jesse Drive.
Right, because then people will have full opportunity to get to 55, which then they could get onto US 1. If they're using 1010 to get to US 1, they would be able to use Jesse Drive to get to US 1 as well, and also get to 55. So that's a significant connection that needs to be made.
I have a question. I think it's probably maybe for our town manager or for construction management. Once the contract is let for Jesse Drive extension to 55, then these houses can be built. The question I have is, how long would it take to construct Jesse Drive across that wetland versus how long, I mean, they can get their houses up in 3 months. If it takes a year or better to get that Jesse Drive in, then there's 9 months of chaos. That's one of my concerns.
Yeah.
Mr. Dalton advised about a year for construction. So
It would take about
wouldn't
a
let
year.
it until all the property acquisition design is done, but it'll take about a year to construct that.
Thank you.
So we would not release the plats, which means they would not be able to get building permits for those until they wouldn't be able to start, begin to construct those until the contract was let. The road was let.
I understand. The concern I have is that you can build a house a whole lot faster than you can build a road. So there's a timing situation there that maybe needs to be adjusted so that it's half-built or something like that, so that everything comes together at the same time. That's a concern. Thank you.
So, in conclusion, planning staff is recommending approval of the proposed 2030 land use map amendment on 5101 Jesse Drive from medium-high density residential to high-density residential and office employment, industrial employment, and also recommending approval of the proposed rezoning to LICZ and PUDCZ as proposed by the applicant. The planning board at their October 9th meeting did recommend approval by a vote of 6-1, with the conditions as offered by the applicant, including an added condition to correct the buffers to meet the section referenced here in the report of the UDO, and those corrections were made, which actually resulted in an increase in buffer width in certain locations. Approval of the land use map amendment is in keeping with the future land use classifications to the north and west of the subject properties, and with the Town Council's stated goal of increasing the amount of land available for non-residential uses. With the approval of the proposed change to the land use map, the requested rezoning to PUDCZ would be consistent with said map. The requested portion to LICZ is already consistent with the 2030 land use map. With the modifications made to the text since the September 11th Planning Board meeting, the rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The rezoning sets residential development restrictions that are tied to off-site road improvements, the construction of internal collector streets, and the construction of improvements on 1010 Road and/or Jesse Drive. This ensures that the project is not built out prior to the substantial completion of significant roadway improvements that will mitigate the project's impact on the surrounding community. The rezoning proposes nearly 47 acres of non-residential zoning that will provide employment opportunities and office and retail uses to support the immediate and surrounding neighborhoods. This will also help to improve the tax base for the town of Apex. And finally, the rezoning provides for a variety of residential uses and product types that are appropriate based on the location and context of each within the PUD. I'll be happy to answer any additional questions that you may have.
I have a couple of questions. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't feel like our townhouse developments, maybe you can get this answer for me, have been 6 units an acre. I feel like they've been less than that. Maybe I could look at some recent townhouse units that we've approved.
There have been some that are less. Sometimes we see them along the lines of 5 or 5.5 dwelling units per acre. It really depends if it's mixed in an overall project that has single family or if it's just townhomes. And this is basically setting their maximum number of units. What they're actually able to achieve once they start laying out the subdivision plan, that number may go down.
So do you know off the top of your head the development across from Salem Baptist Church, I believe is a 100% townhouse development, what that density was?
That would be the towns at North Salem. I do not know. I can look that up for you and have that, but I don't know off the top of my head.
All right, and the second question, I made a comment about a year ago when Mr. Whitehead's project was approved connecting Colby Chase about traffic going through there. What's our plan with calming traffic? 4-way stop, a traffic circle?
I believe Russell could answer that question better than I. Any type of traffic calming measures at Colby Chase and the north-south collector intersection?
What I understand in the subdivision plan review, they've proposed a traffic circle, a mini circle, so we're fine with that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I know
It is actually.
Okay, well,
Go ahead.
Any other questions on that, or? Good.
While you're here, the Colby Chase folks are concerned about keeping Colby Chase closed. Is that Is that in this? Are we keeping Colby Chase closed until the connection to, from, I forget the name of the street now, Darby or something like that is made?
Well, at this time, we don't have that, but it'd be up to the applicant to offer that, condition.
Okay. Okay, I have another, I'll be glad to wait if you guys want to. I have at least one more, maybe being as you're a traffic engineer slash planner. The pod 1, the purple. I'm concerned personally that this really isn't in the plan unit development. I've seen this before. The developer doesn't have a lot of control. Yeah, they rezone it to what it should be rezoned to, but then nothing happens. But the one concern I have here is we have a stub from Pinnacle Park coming down almost due north of this point. In this traffic development or traffic plan, it seems to me that we should require some sort of a dedication of a right-of-way through that property in some place so that we can stub out to where the cash property is just north and eventually make that connection. And the reason I'm asking is because we want to make this live work. And there's an opportunity to connect this thing directly, eventually, to a real business park. And not have the people get out on 1010. I mean, it's not going to be a huge impact, but some of those people that are living there can work in Pinnacle Park or as the cash property develops possibly. And we need that connection, and I think that should be in this plan at this point if they want to play the game of that's going to be part of their deal.
And as I'm seeing it, I guess Amanda'd have to clarify from the north shown in that plan.
Right,
as
so
they've shown it.
on our transportation plan, there is a street generally in this location. In fact, this property has already dedicated half of the right-of-way. So this alignment would be worked out at the time of site plan, and at that time, they would have to, we would deal with the road at the time of site plan, getting right-of-way dedication and that portion constructed, since it is on our transportation plan. Since it's not part of that LICZ area, is not part of the PUD, it's not shown here. This pod is just being shown for illustration purposes only, but that would be required to happen at the time of site plan approval.
And the problem I have is when is site plan going to be, because the developer doesn't have any control over this. Once again, it's a little bit like Friendship Station.
But in the same turn, if it were a part of the PUD, it could develop last. We don't know the timing of when it would develop.
If it was part of the PUD, though, we could require a phasing of some sort to at least get that road in, I believe. That's a big concern for me.
It can't be part of the PUD because most of the uses in LI are not allowed in PUD.
Okay, that's fine, but how do we ensure that we get roadway connectivity ready as this thing builds out? I'm really troubled by that. Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
I do have a question for Amanda. The lone vote against this on the planning board, to give reasons?
I don't know.
I can answer that. It was Mr. Mead, and he was mainly concerned about the timing of road construction, both for the time of construction when vehicles would be coming through the neighborhood. Several neighborhoods, actually, it would be coming through Pemberley, Miramont, and Marion, and he was concerned about that, particularly the county streets being impacted, since we don't have any control to maintain or fix them if something happened. And he was also concerned about just the timing of which roads would be done when, and mainly concerned, he is the ETJ representative, and mainly concerned about the ETJ neighbors.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Is there any other gain on going to high density other than the extra 1 unit per acre?
That's it.
That is it, okay. And the other question I do have is, Pod 2 is limited to 48 feet, which is non-residential, while the apartments can go to 65 feet. Why is the reasoning not to allow up to 65 feet so they can have a taller office?
48 feet is what the applicant
Asked for.
proposed. That's potentially
Okay.
a 4-story
I'll talk to the
office
applicant.
building.
Okay, thank you.
And to confirm, Pod 4 high density is, in our zoning, in our UDO, is 14 units an acre. They asked for 15.
The current 2030 land use map designation has Pod 4 as medium-high density residential, which is up to 14. They have requested that change to high density so that they could request 15 dwelling units an acre.
And I do have the answer on the Towns at North Salem townhome development. It was approved at 5.79 units per acre, and that's actually what that was approved on the PUD, but it's also what they ended up doing in their construction plan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amanda. This time, let me ask if the applicant is here to present. So while he's making his way up here, we typically give the applicant a 9-minute presentation if they so choose. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to you, Mr. Barron.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the applicant. I won't take all of the 9 minutes, I can promise you that. I cannot speak for Jeff Roach of Peak Engineering, who's going to be covering the fine details of this plan, and my guess is he will occupy the remaining portion of the 9 minutes to the extent I don't. I'm going to keep my comments brief. Amanda's done a fantastic job preparing the presentation associated with this and covering the details. I do want to say it's unusual in my experience to be involved in the zoning case in the town of Apex. It includes light industrial, tech flex, apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. I mean, that is it's a mixed-use development. And I know that's something that you all are looking for when you look for zoning cases to move forward. I just want to hit a couple of high points, and I'm going to hand it over to Jeff. As was mentioned during the staff's presentation, this is predominantly in keeping with the future land use map. To the extent it is not, where in the small portion where we are requesting a modification, we have the staff's support for that. It is bringing significant public infrastructure to this area. There will be a regional pump station that will be constructed as part of this development that will serve not only this development, but a good portion of property in the basin in this area. So that we believe that's a significant improvement. In addition to that, it's also bringing, as Amanda mentioned, public infrastructure via the north-south collector as well as this east-west collector. And it's the configuration of this site is a little unusual. But it's unusual in a way that actually benefits the town, because by being able to piece these properties together in the way that they've been able to piece together, the town actually gets all of this connection from Jesse down here to where it connects to Marion, and then all the way out here to Smith Road. It's tough to bring all those together at one time in one assemblage, and so that we believe that that's a significant benefit to the town, whereas if it wasn't coming together in one development, you'd have to wait for it on a piece-by-piece basis or exercise condemnation to get that. Third point I want to make is that it's gone through a lot of work. You know, we actually went to the planning board twice. We went to the planning board first for a proposal that included a portion of this area to be designated for for residential purposes, and then after we received a favorable recommendation from the planning board, we took a trip back after revising that proposal to now make it non-residential, and it is here before you tonight after a lot of work that's been put in. And then lastly, we've in talking with a number of you, we talked with Mr. Moyer, and in response to the question that you raised recently, Mr. Jensen, about the vehicular connection to the Marion subdivision, the applicant is not insensitive to the concerns that those folks have with respect to traffic moving through their neighborhood, and we are happy and have worked with the planning staff as well as Mr. Dalton in transportation, have worked with a condition that we would like to add to the case, and that is that Colby Crossing Drive shall not be opened to the Marion subdivision until the north-south collector street is constructed and open to the public. So that will essentially be blocked off until the north-south collector is completed.
May I ask you one question on that then?
Sure.
The Zola, I guess it is, they requested that that be fully connected. I'm not sure what the pacing is. Is that connected already before the north-south connectors put in? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, again, I just wanted to hit a couple of high points. Again, I think this is bringing a lot of advantage to the town. It's bringing development into an area that is going to be developing over the course of time. As Mr. Roach will touch on, it's got some fairly robust conditions with respect to transportation, specifically with respect to essentially stopping development until Jesse Drive is going to end up getting completed out to 55. And so with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Roach and let him cover the fine-tuned details.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jeff Roach, Peak Engineering and Design. Jason used a lot of the 9 minutes there, not to pick on him. But like he said, I will be touching on more of the detailed side of this. I will try not to speak too long, and I will basically turn most of my time to answering any questions you guys may have, or ladies may have. Kind of big overview of the project. You can see it here, it's highlighted in yellow. What we've done is basically gone through here and surrounded the project. The Hortons have been on the land since 1908 when Matthew Horton was first born. You can kind of see the projects that have come along since then. They've been quite a number of them. Everything in yellow is residential. Green is the golf course, the landfill, future school sites. Red being retail, gray being Viridia, or Jesse Commons up here in red. So you can kind of see they've kind of been turned into an infill site. So we're looking tonight to come in here, add significant infrastructure, about $4 million in pump stations, about $1.5 million in off-site intersection improvements that will be done on day one, plus about $4 million in town-required collector streets, the east-west collector, and I'll go through these here in a second, showing you all the different ones. There's 7 of them shown right there on that map that are major, minor collector streets, or even in Jesse Drive is actually a major thoroughfare. So these 7 streets are being constructed during some portion of the construction of Horton Park. Mr. Jensen, you asked earlier about a direct connection north to Reliant up in Pinnacle Park.
Or just on that purple part?
Correct. What I was showing was what we've done is we've been working with Shannon Cox in planning for the future alignment of this north-south collector street up to Jesse Drive. The light industrial area up here also has a connection, a minor collector street shown heading north up to the Paula Perkins property to the north. The current alignment right there actually won't work because there's a huge pocket of wetlands there. It will slide generally where we have shown it on one of our previous slides.
To make it like a 4-way.
That's correct. That's exactly right, Mr. Moore. Just to make a 4-way intersection with Jesse Drive. If they go straight north, they can get into future Pinnacle Park or whatever the Fred Cash, Paula Perkins piece will eventually be.
Let me take just a moment of your time.
Please do.
I'm sure that we'll extend
I think this is better to have...
the concern I have, Mr. Roach, is that we get that dedication of some sort, and that development of that piece of property takes place while the houses are being built, or during that time. I don't want to see this become another one of these, we build all the houses and then eventually the non-residential gets built. Or at least get that connection through. If that doesn't, I think it's very critical to get that connection all the way up to the north boundary of that, what was purple piece of property on one map that I looked at. That non-residential that's not part of the PUD.
So, Mr. Jensen, there's kind of 2 questions there. One is there's a reason that we did not include this in the PUD, as Amanda touched on.
Yes.
Different uses. Also, because I understand later tonight you guys have another contract discussion this evening, a public hearing, on the Paula Perkins Fred Cash piece. That will be a light industrial. It is currently zoned light industrial. If we zone this northern piece here, north of Jesse Drive, anything other than purple on the land use map or the zoning map, it would be kind of a question mark. Why is that a PUD when it's not? Everything else around is light industrial. So we specifically kept that north of Jesse Drive zone light industrial.
I understand.
As for your discussion about timing, we don't control the timing of when residential, non-residential, or offices come in. That's a great example with Jesse Commons. It's been sitting since 2008, rezoned for commercial, but there's no rooftops, so it hasn't gone anywhere. So it's the same thing. We can't commit to when this gets built. We have no control over when somebody will come in and want to build 27 acres up there.
I'm not worried about the buildings going up. I'm really worried about a dedication or an ability to make that connection straight up there. And the concern I have is that your developer doesn't have control of that property. Somehow, I would like to see enough control that the road dedication is put in so that that can be connected, even if it's a ribbon road, on up into Pinnacle Park, so that we get the connectivity to this development.
Well, we can't build as a ribbon paved street, because it's not a town standard, so Russell won't let us. My guess is, I don't want to speak for Russell, but my guess is he won't let us build as a ribbon paved street.
Okay.
So, Mr. Jensen, I think construction of that north road from Jesse up to Pinnacle Park will have to be part of maybe the economic plan for what happens with Fred Cash or Paula Perkins. So, there's no way I can force them to build the light industrial portion north of Jesse Drive on day one. So, Mr. Mayor, I notice I've gone yellow. I hope that I can extend my time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I think
I took a lot of...
I will try to cut it short. And
what I'd like to do is let you have the time you asked for the question
Okay.
to finish your presentation,
Perfect.
and then we'll give the applicant one more shot at the tail end of the public hearing, just to see if there's any final comments or to be open for a question from the council. Does that
And there were
sound fine?
questions by Mr. Jensen and Mr. Moyer and even Mr. Schultz that were asked that I wrote down that I'd be happy to address now. I can address them after the public hearing is closed, however you guys want me. I know this is a big project with a lot of moving parts to it. So me trying to rush through 9 minutes real fast, I think is doing the project kind of a disservice. But I would like to answer questions without sacrificing other...
If you can address those specific questions that were pre-asked, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
If you could go ahead and do that now.
Okay.
And then I'll give you an opportunity at the end of public hearing to see if there's any other questions still remaining.
Okay, I appreciate the latitude, thank you. Mr. Scholes, you asked about sewer, it's correct. The $4 million pump station will pump back to the wastewater treatment plant. It will also open up capacity down on Sunset Lake Road. For the existing pump station is out of capacity, because we're gonna shorten the force main hydraulics. We're gonna shorten the force main, allow everything coming off of the east side of Middle Creek to drain down to Sunset Lake and get picked up. So it's kind of a double whammy, it actually helps.
Yeah, I do have a follow-up question on that, and I appreciate the interest of time here, I'm sorry. But I know in the past, the history as a town has been opposed to new pump stations. Obviously, there's been no opposition but up to that, so it's okay then? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Scholes, this pump station is actually shown on the town's adopted public utility plan. It's actually called the Middle Creek North Pump Station 1. It's actually shown on all of Mr. Hughes' plans, all adopted plans. So we're actually following that plan.
Okay, thank you.
Private pump stations that we don't like.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Jensen, you asked earlier about why are we changing the land use on the one parcel here identified under number 1. Actually, high density, medium high density does not allow for apartments in the 2030 land use map. So we have to ask for the land use map amendment to allow for apartments on that parcel. So it's not a matter of the density numbers going from 14 to 15. It's purely a matter of allowing the use, which is apartments. Okay? And remember something, our final density is still up in the air. We want the latitude, and we think that that magic number is somewhere between 275 and 350 for apartments, and that gets us right in that wheelhouse.
But you've capped it at 16 units per acre.
I think we're at 15.
You are capped at 15.
We capped it at 15.
So
Yes,
it's
sir.
same as medium high. That's 15.
That was 14.
Oh, that is 14. Okay, I shifted, I guess, one set. I thought it was
And we ran the numbers to
16.
see,
All right,
Mr. Jensen, because we took almost 2 acres out of this piece here
yeah,
and changed it over to the TechFlex office uses.
okay,
So we've actually kind of done both things that I think are beneficial.
all right.
You also asked about the Colby Chase Drive. Jason touched on it a minute ago. We are going to propose closing that through the Marion subdivision up until the time the north-south collector. I know that was a big concern of Mr. Moyer, along with the neighbors that are all here, to close that off during construction for them.
And you said, well, Duzola, I guess it is that going to be built before opening Colby Chase?
So Duzola has a pretty interesting, right now Duzola Street is the only access point for the Josh Beck, Mike Mansfield, and 2 other properties that are right here, Mr. Jensen. We are unable to build the entire east-west collector on day 1 because we would close off all access for them. So what we are proposing is the north-south collector will be built on day 1. We will then build the east-west collector from right there to approximately right here as phase 1. allow the Mansfields, the Becks to come out of their house and go west. While they're going west, we will immediately start construction of the eastern portion of the east-west collector street to get out to Smith Road.
Okay.
It's simply because of access, it's because
I
of
understand.
convenience for them.
But at what point does Colby Chase get opened up?
When that north-south collector street is open to the public.
Okay, so DeZola will not be built all the way through.
That's correct.
What is the timing on that in terms of getting DeZola done?
Immediately. DeZola, this initial section here will be done along
On
with the
phase
north,
one.
will be done with the north-south collector.
Okay.
This one will only take however long it takes to build it. They will roll immediately into that. Once they finish with the Mansfield and the Beck properties to get out to the west, they are going to continue to the east to get to Smith Road.
Are there any wetlands to cross there? There is.
There is a creek crossing there, but it's a fairly minor, I say
Okay.
fairly minor.
Okay.
If you talk to Mr. Beck, it's a...
Nothing's minor with the creek.
That's correct, that's correct.
Yeah.
It's a big creek. So, that, I think, kind of discusses that. The Pinnacle Park discussion we talked about. You also mentioned going higher in the Tech Flex zoning. We had 48 feet. We can go to unlimited. I don't know what the ordinance allows for maximum height within Tech Flex.
That'd have to be to the council. I just felt that.
I mean, we can go to 65 to match the apartments, if
Yeah.
that's what, Mr. Jensen, we had talked about that the other day.
I'm on board with that.
Okay.
So we'll, Jason, write a condition about going 65 feet in Tech Flex.
It's better for you guys, and I think it's better
If
for
we
the
can,
area.
Diane, whatever. And while she's looking, I'll continue.
Okay.
Mr. Moore, you asked about traffic calming device. I think Russell answered it. We've actually already submitted for the Colby Chase site plan, master subdivision plan, and we show a mini roundabout in there. There are, I think, 2 of them already in Pemberley. We're gonna do the exact same thing. It's a minor collector, so we can't do stop signs. We can't do speed bumps because it also stops fire, ambulance, and police, slows them down getting through there. Okay? I'm probably just gonna open it up to your questions, anything you guys have. I think answering questions from you guys, I think pretty much went through everything.
What was that picture you had?
So, I'm sorry, I have the answer to the height for
Go ahead.
Tech Flex. The standard height for Tech Flex is 48 feet, but per the PUD section, the dimensional standards in the table of intensity and dimensional standards can be varied, provided they meet North Carolina Building Code and North Carolina Fire Code.
Okay,
So-
so they could go to,
They can go higher, yeah.
thank you.
Okay. If it's okay with council, I'd like for Mr. Barron to write a thing for maximum 65 feet, which will match the apartments,
Okay,
and that it will meet the building code standards as the planning director just
all right.
mentioned. If that's acceptable, council,
Sure.
we'll make that change.
Mr. Roach, what was that picture you had that you zoomed over on your
Oh,
presentation?
This is the family,
Oh.
these are the Hortons. Just so you guys know, that's Matthew Horton. He was born on the property in 1908. That's his wife, Carcilla. We're actually naming the project after the family. One of the main streets, either the north-south or east-west, will be named after his wife, Carcilla. And these are actually their 13 kids. So it's very interesting. Back in the day, they had 13. This area right here, before it kind of got moved around, was actually 13. They were all 4.6 acre lots. They gave one to each of their kids. So that's why that little area is broken up. And the family still owns 2 of the parcels. This parcel here and the parcel here are Kip and Kim Horton, Loomis Horton's kids. Loomis passed away about a year ago. So the family it's their time to sell. They came to us, and that's why we're here tonight. So I'm here to answer any questions. I will say whatever time. I apologize for being so long, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
but I appreciate the latitude.
Are there any questions before we go to the public hearing?
Yeah, one final one, is the concern, at least my concern with Jesse Drive, if we let the contract, then it's gonna take a year to build that, is an estimate. Can all those, the problem I have is, it may not be online while all these houses get built, and then we've got a brouhaha there.
So, Mr. Jensen, remember that it takes time to build homes. We
Yep.
can't slap up 300 homes in a year. I mean, we could if they really tried. We can't plat them. So what we have is, we've committed under option 1 to 3 different steps. 200 plus another 100, and then the final waiting on Jesse Drive. Option 2 would be the complete, or the completion of Jesse Drive, till we get an unlimited number of lots. Does that make sense? So we could start construction and go up to 150 lots. The next day that Jesse Drive opens, they can go to the maximum number. But Jesse Drive has to be open.
Has to be open.
Has to be
not
open.
just-
The comment and just,
I might have missed that someplace. What I read was,
I wanna make sure with staff.
yeah,
I think that's the wording that's in our PD text.
In option one, they're essentially capped at 300 units until the time that Jesse Drive extension is let for construction.
yes.
Option two is if the construction and the completion of Jesse Drive extension, once that happens, basically the remainder can be
Completion and open of
when
Jesse
it's
Drive.
completed and open as a two-lane road section from 55 to 1010,
Then they can
then the caps are lifted.
Okay, so there is caps. I somehow missed that, I guess, on the caps, until actually Jesse Drive is open. So we do have a cap until Jesse Drive is open. That's what you just said, is that correct?
Kind.
No.
Let me restate it one more time.
All right.
And this is in your staff report. I can,
Yeah.
if it helps to hear it and see it at the same time,
I've
you
got
can
it here.
refer to, page 13
13.
to 14.
13 and 14.
Phases 1 and 2 of option 1 caps them at 300 dwelling units. They are held to that 300 units, until the Jesse Drive extension has been let for construction. So no more than 300 units
Okay.
until it's let for construction. So option 2 basically says that if at any time funding is acquired or there's people that are willing to build Jesse Drive, however Jesse Drive extension happens, once that road is open, so even if it's before that 300 or the 1010 widening completion or any other of the road improvements mentioned in option 1, once Jesse Drive is open, then there's no more caps.
So I understand option 2. Maybe I'm back and misunderstanding option 1, but you said 300 units can be built, period, and then then Jesse Drive has to be let for construction.
Correct.
At that point, the rest can be built?
Yes. Once
That's the way
Jesse Drive is let for construction.
Once it's let for construction. And I understand it takes time to build houses, but
So
it takes time to build
Can I
roads.
give you another time that nobody's talked about either yet?
Yeah.
1010 Road is currently a DOT project. It's planned to start construction in 2023. So that's 5.5 years out. So this developer is actually trying to find a way to work with the town on LAP funding, on a way to kind of push Jesse Drive forward. He can't commit to building it because he doesn't control all the properties. The right-of-way is there to build Jesse Drive, but it's about a $5 to $6 million construction project. So if the town wants to give him $5 to $6 million, he'll build Jesse Drive for you. I mean, I say that half jokingly. I'm serious. That's
laughing.
I saw you. But I'm serious. But that connection of Jesse Drive is a major safety thing for the police, fire, and EMS to get back and forth. So it's on every plan. So
It's on our tip also.
correct.
Okay.
So, Mr. Jensen, so that's kind of giving you that other piece is that, you know, we get 200 lots, and then we have to wait on 1010 to get another 100 lots, and then we have to wait again on Jesse Drive for who knows how long to get the remainder of the...
So
to let the
somehow there has to be money, obviously, before you let the contract.
Correct. So
Okay.
so that's why we put option 2 in there, was that if there was a way, if TIF funding came through or some type of funding source came through to build and make the full connection of Jesse, it gave the developer to move forward. That's why we did kind of a two-step process.
Okay. I'll back off, I guess, a little bit on my concern about, not 100%, I'm still concerned that a lot of the houses can be built before Jesse gets in there, but you know, at the very worst, it's gonna be, probably 6 months of hassle.
If it's all right, I'd like to go to the public hearing.
Yes,
and then
I'm sorry.
We can certainly ask some questions if we still have
I
some.
appreciate that, I don't need to
All right.
take everything.
Thank you for the
on
latitude,
time.
brother.
Yes, sir. All right.
Yes, I do take.
At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. If you signed up on the sheet, I will be calling your name. I'm told from the town clerk that there were 4 of you that wish to speak in a specific order and together. Is that correct? Can you raise your hand so I know which 4 those are? Okay, great. All right, I've got the numbers here, so I'll have you grouped at the end, if that's all right. With that, I'll call the first couple up so that the second person can be getting ready. Donna Provence, and then Pam Wells be ready to follow. And then it looks like Josh Rinke. All right, and as you no doubt know by now, there's the green, yellow, red timer, so you have 3 minutes, and please use the microphone. I mean, you can just speak towards it, you'll be fine, so everybody can hear you. Please state your name and address, and you may begin.
Okay. I am speaking for more than 4 people, so I do ask for the 9 minutes.
I need to know which 4 people have authorized you to speak for them. Please
Okay.
indicate.
And then I actually had, I don't know if he actually sent an email in, but the folks from Summercrest Drive, they had also asked for me to speak on their behalf.
I need to see the hands of all who, hold them up. One.
As well as myself.
All right, proceed.
All right.
9 minutes, yes.
Okay.
So, Ms. Town Clerk, you got that? All right, thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Donna Provence. I live in the Myrtlewood subdivision at 2624 Sweet Gum Drive in Apex 27539. I am here to ask you to deny the zoning application for the project called Horton Park. I previously submitted a position paper that details our requests and rationale. It was signed by nearly all of the residents of Jesse Drive area. Many are here tonight, and many emailed you directly with their concerns. Our area includes nearly 20 homes on Jesse and 2 subdivisions, Myrtlewood and Ruth's Landing. These subdivisions have only one way in and out, and that's via Jesse. Private driveways, along with private drinking water wells, dot Jesse on both sides of the road. In addition, all of the residents of Summercrest Drive signed a request asking you to deny the application because our roads can barely handle today's traffic. They certainly can't handle the more than 7,000 trips projected to stem from Horton Park. These residents live between Jesse and Smith Road. Their representative asked me to remind you of their request. Mr. Roach just spoke about the history of Horton Park, and it is very nice of Mr. Whitehead to offer a tribute to the family by naming his project and streets after them. What is overlooked is that a large contingent of residents in our neighborhood, many original homeowners, have been Apex's residents for all or at least a good chunk of their lives. Indeed, Jesse Drive is named after the man who bought the land more than 100 years ago. Jesse Hunter was the grandfather of many of today's Jesse residents, along with their cousin residing in Myrtlewood. One of his granddaughters has lived her entire 73 years on that land. For us, Horton Park will transform our quiet country road into an urban one with a never-ending flow of traffic on Jesse. These vehicles will make it nearly impossible for us to get onto Jesse, let alone 1010. If you approve this application, then you're telling us it's more important for Apex to build, and attract new residents because we don't care about you. We'd rather name a project after an old Apex family than sustain your quality of life and safety. You getting out of your driveway or street doesn't matter much. You're in the way of progress. Just look at our 2030 map. It says so. And what is that progress? It's one built on the premise that if you build it, they will come. That is not mindful development with an understanding of supply and demand. No, it is a wishful, hopeful one, built on the belief that the amount of our supply does not matter. Apex will always achieve and maintain high occupancy rates. Apex has many offerings. Off of 1010 is Pinnacle Park. It's been discussed. It is expanding by 25 acres. Pinnacle is Apex's most successful industrial park. Yet its developed section has vacated buildings for sale, plus lots in that new addition. None of those lots have been sold. Viridia and Jesse Commons are in the works. Viridia will be 12 million square feet of business space, plus 3.5 million square feet of retail space, plus 8,000 new residences. Jesse Commons, according to the Apex website, will be 435,000 square feet of business spaces. Trinity Apex has an application pending. It will create more offices, townhouses, and apartments. All three of these projects are east of Highway 1, with Jesse Commons and Trinity across the street from Verinity and less than a mile from Horton Park. These projects and Horton must compete with each other, and they must compete with other Apex's business parks, including 540 Flex and Business Park, Bradley Commons, and Norris Park. Apex is also competing with other cities that are equally expanding like mad, such as Cary, Holly Springs, as well as Wake Forest, Raleigh, and that huge 7,100-acre Chatham Park in Pittsboro. And that's just your business parks. There are also new residential areas constantly popping up, such as Sweetwater and, depending on what you decide tonight, Gracewood. Too much supply means vacant buildings with lowered rents and sales prices. Apex will suffer if we have more vacant buildings like the one on Center Street sitting empty for years. But let's assume town growth projections are accurate and supply is not sufficient. Who here uses 1010? Raise your hand. That's a lot of hands that you're seeing right there. Everyone here knows the traffic on 1010 is bad. But I hear your thoughts. What about those infrastructure improvements? They sure do look nice. Well, I maintain they mean diddly squat for 1010. Oh, they would improve today's traffic, but not all those thousands of new vehicles coming on from Horton Park. The best those improvements will do is maintain a bad status quo. And keep in mind, construction traffic will start next year, with first units offered in 2019. You're talking at least 5 years of more traffic before 1010 is widened, at the earliest in 2023. And we all know widening will be a construction nightmare for drivers. I want to next focus actually on the safety of 1010, not the misery of the daily commute. Vehicles creep along, often coming to a standstill in 1010 during peak hours. Emergency folks are no exception. They are often fighting traffic, slowing their opportunity to fight fires or save a life from a medical event or accident. If an accident blocks 1010, well, as you contemplate approving more projects, not just Horton, but others too, please take into account the ability of first responders to respond quickly and not be stuck in traffic. I also ask you to consider the consequences of an evacuation scenario. I'm not striving to be an alarmist here. I don't lie in bed wondering about my safety. I feel safe. If I didn't, I wouldn't live here. But it is hurricane season, and we're constantly reminded to be prepared. Preparedness means know your evacuation route, which for many of us includes 1010. Have you pondered how you and your family will evacuate if there's another Apex fire like a few years ago? We on Jesse were lucky. We didn't have to evacuate because the wind shifted. But others here probably did. Possibly some of you. Apex has several risk areas. Besides trains and hurricanes, we also have the gas tanks on 1010 and the constant stream of tankers. Bisecting Jesse, Sweetgum, and Horton project is the Colonial Oil Pipeline. And don't forget about the nuclear power plant. Because we're within 10 miles of that plant, we're entitled to those free pills in case there's an accident. So despite Horton's road improvements, all those thousands of more vehicles on 1010 will worsen an evacuation crisis. Thank you for your time, for listening, and for pondering about our economic, safety, and quality of life effects of Horton and any new project on our town and residents. We, including each one of you, are those residents.
Thank you, Ms. Province. Pam Wells. And then Josh Rinke will be up next.
My name is Pam Wells. I have lived on Sweet Gum Drive here in Apex for the past 25 years, and I have been a resident of Wake County since my birth. This past September 23rd, I celebrated my 60th birthday. On that morning at 9 a.m., my daughter, Tess, and two of her grad school friends left our home for a school function. They were headed west on Highway 1010. Tess calls me 5 minutes later. Mom, I've been in an accident by Knight's Play golf course. I'm okay, but I cannot drive my car. My heart and my entire life stopped at that moment. It was a parent's worst fear. A few minutes later, my husband and I arrived on the scene and learned that a driver eastbound on heavily traveled 1010, yes, heavy, even on an early Saturday morning, attempted a left turn onto Penny Road. The driver, driving an SUV and pulling a large boat, said he did not see my daughter approaching, following a long line of cars, and turned directly into her, crushing the entire driver's side, shattering the door glass, knocking a seat-belted Tess practically into the lap of her friend. Thank God her vehicle did not roll over. Aside from being shaken, she and her friends were mercifully unharmed. Her 2016 Toyota RAV4 was a total loss. Things could have turned out so differently. Had my daughter been seriously injured or lost her life that morning, well, you can imagine how my next birthdays would be. Also, my youngest son, Miles, was married just 6 days later. His wedding memories could have been tragically affected by his sister's accident. Yes, the consequences of approval of the Horton project is very personal to me. Highway 1010 has become a road riddled with setups for potentially fatal disasters due to population overgrowth stressing this once rural but still two-lane road. I am extremely concerned with the fact that there is no caution lot at Mativa to trip, thus allowing gasoline tankers to safely enter Highway 1010. An accident here would be disastrous to the traveling public, to nearby homes, and could have serious environmental implications. The vast majority of the responses to your 2045 survey overwhelmingly implore you to stop the growth until needed infrastructure is in place. Small town charm is dead in Apex. Ask anyone who has lived here long enough to deal with the traffic nightmares, crowded schools, and stressed environmental resources, and they will tell you so. In closing, it is my opinion to continue to approve residential and commercial development that feeds directly into the stressed and fragile Highway 1010 is nothing short of negligence on behalf of the town of Apex and represents a blatant disregard for the safety of our citizens and out-of-towners passing through. I implore each of you tonight to be heroes, take a stand, and set an example by keeping your campaign promises of slow growth. Do the right thing and vote no for the Horton project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wells. Josh Rinke, or is he part of the application? I don't know. All right. All right. We'll move on then. Judy Ward.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and mayor, and citizens. My name is Judy Ward. I live in Murderwood subdivision, 2528 Sweet Gum Drive. I've been living there for about 30 years now. It was a nice neighborhood. It is a nice neighborhood still. Quiet, peaceful, nothing. We've seen, when I first got there, 1010 was an easy-going road to get on. No problems. Today, I have a hard time getting on 1010. I go to work every morning at 6:30. If I leave 6:15, I could get out maybe. 6:30, I have a hard time. 6:45, oh, forget it. I'm gonna have to turn right, go down 1 mile, then turn around and go down number 1. Or hope and pray that the car coming has his lights on and he'll let me slow down and let me in. The oil tankers, I go through and all of a sudden an oil tank cuts in front of me. I have to wait. All of a sudden there's a school bus that's in front. I wait for them. I leave. I finally get to work in Cary 5 minutes to 7. I have to go to number 1 every day. If this project we have down Jesse, we're going to need a stoplight. Just for me to get out of 1010 or widen 1010. If you want to see how my life is, come every morning at 6:30 and out in the morning and see what I have to deal with. In the evening, today, I was lucky I left late and I got out. But in the evening at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I have a hard time getting out of my subdivision. The traffic is all straight and they block my 1010 and Jesse. I have to go to the right, go down 1 street, turn around just to get to number 1. I did this all the time if nobody lets me in. And the people turning left onto Jesse, sometimes they'll let me in, and sometimes they won't. Now, people going down Jesse. We have this project. I turn on. They said they go widen Jesse, the 3 lanes and stoplight. I get on Jesse Road. My sweet gum is right below Jesse, about 100 feet, something like that. Okay, these people coming out of the subdivision. All of a sudden, they block my way of getting into Sweet Gum. Now, I gonna have to stop till somebody decides to have the heart to let me in. The person in front of me, he wants to go down straight. He's gonna have to wait till I turn to the left. The person on to 1010 that just turned on Jesse, he's gonna have to wait until I turn to the left, until somebody opens up. Okay. I just let you know. One more thing, we do have wildlife down there. Just consider about them coming to our neighborhood now.
Thank you. Pam Carter. And then Russ Bell will be next.
Hi, my name is Pam Carter, and I also live in Myrtlewood on Sweet Gum Drive. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I will not reiterate the concerns of my neighbors, although I strongly agree with all the concerns raised. I would like to speak to the ethical and moral issues here. Mr. Whiteside opened the door to speak of these issues when he spoke at the planning meeting on October 3rd. In a touching speech, he showed an old family portrait of the Horton family, which he again showed this evening. He also attended their family reunion where he was able to solve a problem they were having with the family cemetery. I'm sure this took little effort on his part, as his pockets and influence run very deep. It is my opinion he bought their property in support and with his money and influence, without any regard to the effect this would have on the surrounding neighborhoods. I wonder how many more Horton family reunions he plans to attend. If this project is approved, our way of life will be changed forever. Many of us have lived here for over 20 years, as you have heard. My husband was diagnosed with cancer 2 weeks ago. I do not want to have to fight thousands of cars each day to get him to his treatments. I do not want to have to be afraid our emergency response system will be stretched beyond capacity due to the increase in population in our backyard and the unacceptable increase in traffic and will not be able to reach us. The general theme in which you all campaigned on was slow growth in Apex. We have entrusted you with our votes and believed your promises of slow growth. This project certainly does not fall into that category. I would urge you to follow your hearts and minds and campaign promises and vote not to approve this intrusive, potentially unsafe project and the devastating effect it will have on neighboring homes. I strongly urge you to take our concerns seriously. Please take into consideration the impact this will have on multiple subdivisions and thousands of established residents. Let's not let this be another case of a wealthy developer obtaining a project for approval for a plan that has no community support. We can, as a community, work together to find the answers to the problems Mr. Whiteside states he will address with financial assistance. You are the only ones that can prevent this from happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Russ Bell? Russ Bell? What does that mean? Are you in the 4? Yeah, I'm on the 4, yeah. I have different 4. All right, I have Steve, Michael, Hunter, and John. Are those the 4? Yeah. Oh, okay, so you're just giving up your slot. I'm giving up my slot. All right, so Steve, come on up then. So this is Steve Rhodes? All right.
Stephen Rhodes, I live at 3208 Colby Chase Drive.
All right, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. Thank you for everybody attending. Just wanted to state for the record that, and I heard this correctly, that if approved, the following condition will be met: that the Marion side of Colby Chase will remain closed until the north-south connector is fully installed from Colby Chase to Jesse Drive. Just want to make sure I heard that condition correctly.
And what we'll do is let you finish your 3 minutes, and then we'll have somebody follow up on that question.
Okay. And so what I want to talk about for my piece is just road width. Marion is an old county road, has been brought up before. We have large trucks on our road. It was built to the minimum standards, so when you have a large truck or a car or bus come by simultaneously, there are times when vehicles have to pull over to basically yield for the larger vehicle or the smaller vehicle to go by. Our roads are built at 18 feet. If you go to the Pemberley side of Colby Chase, it's 22 feet of asphalt. If you allow the curb, you got 25 feet and 2 additional sidewalks on each side. So there's a major difference between those 2 roads. I want to play a little video to kind of give you a visual. It's less than a minute.
This is how big Pemberley is, which would be Apex standards. So all the way right here, this is how big Pemberley would be. And they have all this space in the middle, but we don't. Welcome to Marion, and this is, if you had 2 cars parked on the side of the road, this is how much space you get to drive through. Can you imagine a school bus trying to drive through this? I can't.
So just in my closing, I just want to say, just reiterate, keep the Marion side of Colby Chase closed to construction traffic during all phases of construction, and connect the Marion side once the north-south connector is complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Michael Parks?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Michael Parks. I live at 5600 Marion Station Drive, which is within the Marion subdivision, tees right off of Colby Chase. What I want to talk to you about this evening is an engineering study that we had Dewberry Engineering do on our infrastructure for our water piping Our water piping is below Apex standards. It's 4 to 6 inch PVC piping. Apex standards are 6 to 8 inch iron pipe. So everything on the Marion side is a 4 to 6 inch PVC, that's plastic, pipe that's under the ground. We already, in today's world with no construction traffic, experience leaks all the time. Aqua has to come out and fix them, which takes months at times for them to even come out. They'll let it drip, on the ground, make big puddles on the roads, and, I guess it's that they don't have enough people to come out and fix it. With all the construction traffic, the cement trucks, the logging trucks, the brick trucks, the lumber trucks that would be passing through there if you allowed Colby Chase to be open, there's no way that 4 to 6 inch PVC piping that crosses Colby Chase all the way down to feed both sides of the street would be able to be left intact. We would have a severe issue with our water. So please consider that. In addition, the streets, you saw the video, you might even have some pictures of the streets. Our streets are Wake County streets. We are still waiting a year later, at least a year later, to have one of our streets repaired. It's in complete disrepair. It's off of Marion Station. It's at the end. If you need to see it, you can drive over there. We've been calling them numerous times. It's been a year and they still haven't fixed it. Even small repairs take months. So again, with all the construction traffic, it's going to tear up the roads, easily tear up the roads. You can see from the pictures we already have road issues, and again, no construction traffic. So please consider that. So I want to be clear on what Jeff said, and what Jeff said from Peak Engineering, that Colby Chase on the Marion side will remain closed until the north-south connector is fully complete from Colby Chase up to Jesse Drive. That's what we're asking for. We've been in front of you guys on numerous occasions, and we're hoping this time that you'll see a way to make that happen. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Hunter Muse?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Town staff. Thank you for your time. Thank you for remembering our concerns on this issue. It's encouraging to hear. So I want to talk to you about three things: the speed on Colby Chase, the angle of the sun, and just kind of where we are with the development and the cost. So Colby Chase runs east-west on the Marion side. So I take my kids to school every morning. My family and I live at 3305 Colby Chase. We live right at the end, so next to the wooded area that's actually going to be developed in all of this. So when I take my kids to school every day, you're driving right into the sun, so you got to have your sunshade down plus your sunglasses on. Coming home from work, it's the same thing. You're driving right back into the sun. And if you haven't been on Colby Chase, when you turn on Colby Chase from Smith Road, it is all downhill. I have to hit the brake to keep under the speed limit. I'm not even talking about hitting the accelerator. When you come off the road, it's downhill the whole way. So we're very concerned about the safety of our kids, the safety of the speed, and you know, as I mentioned, the 7,000 people that are expected to use the Jesse connector. With Waze and Google and all these map apps, if it suddenly pops up that Colby Chase is open and 1010 is backed up from 1 beyond Kildare Farm Road, all those apps are going to route people through our neighborhood. So we're asking that you keep Colby Chase closed until the connector with Jesse to 55 is open. And so the other thing I want to highlight, I'm a financial planner, and we're 110 months into a market expansion. The longest on record is 113 months. I'm not saying we're about to have a recession, but the last recession that happened, all these projects like this got shut down. You heard them say $4 million for a pump station, $4 million for the road. If we hit a recession and real estate dries up, think 12 Oaks, there's not going to be that money to develop this. So if Colby Chase is now open and Jesse's on hold indefinitely because they can't develop, they don't have the money to do the development, we are going to be the main connector to 540 and 55 on our tiny roads, you know, for anybody coming down 1010. So again, for our kids' safety, my wife is an attorney. She researched cases on this. Most of the case law deals with cities that are not proactive. We're asking to be proactive here. When cities have to respond in their cases, It's when they weren't proactive on the front end. So we're asking to be proactive, keep our families safe. And again, just to closing, we want to keep the Marion side of Colby Chase closed to all construction traffic and keep it closed until the connector with Jesse to 55 is completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muse. John Bouchard.
Good evening, Council. My name is John Bouchard. I live on 3108 Colby Chase Drive in the Marion subdivision. I believe it was probably about a year ago, pretty much this month, that we presented to Mr. Jensen about closing the Colby Chase Drive until, basically we didn't want Colby Chase Drive open to Pemberley during the construction period. So what I'd like to talk to you guys about is the current safety regulators that we have in place right now. Basically, in the past, the HOA has requested from the county to add a four-way stop at Colby Chase and Levering Mill. That was denied. Due to the speed, basically, coming down Colby Chase. We've also asked for speed bumps. They denied that. The builder is talking about putting a traffic circle down by the connector point at Colby Chase. That's really not the main issue. The main issue is the speed coming through Colby Chase. What we'd like to do is still go ahead and put a four-way stop at the Colby Chase Levering Mill intersection. But the big picture is we really do not want that Colby Chase Drive connection open until the north-south connector gets done. So that's really what we're requesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bouchard. As the last speaker, I'd like to ask you if you have anything to say about the yellow hats today. No one addressed it, so I thought I'd take the last 10 seconds and see. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, thank you. With that, reaching the end of the list, I'll close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council for discussion. Before we do the discussion, though, let me ask, first, before I bring the applicant up, let me ask Amanda if you can address from the staff's perspective the question that was posed. I think maybe the nice general way to do this would be, could you recap for us the two conditions that you heard added tonight? I heard two, one from Mr. Barron and one from Mr. Roach, correct? If you could recap what you heard and wrote down so that we can all hear them in one shot.
Sure. So the first condition that was added is that the connection of Colby Chase Drive to the Marion subdivision would not be made until the north-south collector street was constructed and open to the public.
North-south Jesse Drive.
No, the north-south street is this north-south collector here that terminates at Jesse Drive. Well, long-range transportation plan would continue, but this is the north-south collector street and then would connect to Colby Chase. So once that was open, constructed and open to the public, that's the road that this condition that was proposed is referring to. The other condition was increasing the maximum building height in Pod 2 to 65 feet.
All right, thank you very much. And at this time, thank you, Amanda. At this time, I'd like to see if the applicant wanted to address anything they heard during public hearing, whether it was a question or a comment.
Mr. Mayor, thank you again. The only comment is about the traffic calming devices on Marion. It is a DOT street from Smith Road to the current terminus now, so anything that's added on Levering Mill is not a Town of Apex issue. I will say that from the edge of Marion all the way back to Old 55 is an Apex street. You cannot put traffic and I'll defer to Russell to make sure I'm not speaking out of turn, but as a minor collector street, you can't do four-way stops and stop signs. You can't do speed bumps because it slows emergency response times. We can do the small mini roundabout, which is what's proposed. So that's really the only comment that I wanted to clarify on.
All right.
Any other questions you have for me, I'm still here.
Thank you. All right, so with that, I'd like to turn to the council to see if there's any discussion or questions for staff or the applicant.
I have a couple of questions that weren't addressed. So one can go to Mr. Roach and Mr. Dalton. With the Marion subdivision, was it included in the traffic study?
Yes, ma'am, it was included as we were required to do traffic counts. Our traffic engineer, Josh Ranke, there he is. He actually had the intersections counted around that we are proposing for the improvement, so it was included as, background traffic or as baseline traffic. So yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the second question, with the new subdivision out there, I know we have an issue sometimes with our schools being overcrowded. So do you guys have any idea about a school opening out that direction anytime soon, or what the...
We do. The school system bought 60 acres between Stevenson Road and Smith Road, south of Coleman Park, behind the mobile home parks on Stevenson Road. That was purchased about a year and a half ago from actually Mr. Whitehead sold it to the school system. They are actually trying to acquire additional land in that same location for a elementary school. And then Lufkin Road is within about 2 miles of the site. So, yes, the schools are...
That's a high school?
It's a high school site proposed, that's correct. And that's, just so you guys know, I think the original date was 2021 or 2022 was what we've last heard from the school system on the site.
Anything else, Councilman? Okay. Any other?
You're, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're up.
Okay, Jesse Drive, I heard concerns about access and quality of life, but my question is, you're only building a certain small section of Jesse Drive, not all the way out. Is that correct, to 1010?
That's correct. We're doing all of Jesse Drive across our frontage, either improving for left turn lanes or widening it to town standards. We are building 2 lanes of a 4-lane section, because the ultimate section is a 100-foot right-of-way, 4 lanes, curb and gutter, basically the same section you have on the Peakway now. We're also doing all the roadway improvements up at Jesse Drive in 1010, including on day 1 applying to DOT for a traffic signal. As you know, we have to meet certain warrants for that signal. So we are trying to get a signal on day 1. We don't know if we'll get it. We don't know when we'll get it, but it will be part of our initial application.
Are you building Jesse to the current terminus of Jesse?
The current terminus, Mr. Moyer, is about right here.
Okay, so you're...
We are going to pick it up from our start right here, and we're going to improve Jesse Drive within the existing right-of-way. We are going to dedicate right-of-way anywhere we have frontage to the ultimate width. In other words, it's a 100-foot right-of-way proposed. So if we're doing one side, we'll do another 20 feet. If we're doing both sides, we'll do 40 feet. So this right-of-way, when it's done, will be sitting there waiting for the ultimate section. We will build 2. Sometimes in this case, we'll have actually 3 lanes here for entrance points, turn lanes, to the extent practical. But the 2 lanes will get you in. The additional 2 lanes are there in the future for DOT to build. And this is being built to Apex standards, even though it will actually be a DOT street.
It was requested that Colby Chase be closed by one person until Jesse got through to 55.
Mm-hmm.
You're closing Colby Chase until the north-south collector is done.
That's correct.
I didn't hear about the Zola. That's the problem one. But Colby Chase could be open before the Zola is completely through.
That's correct.
But there is a timing issue that you said.
That's correct.
Okay, then this other question about Jesse going to 55, I understand you're held down to, and I forget what the number is,
Mm-hmm.
and then once that contract's let, then the numbers can go on up. What is the number that you're capped to before Jesse is let?
Before Jesse is let, is maximum of 300.
300.
So it's Mr. Jensen, it's a 3-step process.
Yeah.
We get 200 on day 1.
Mm-hmm.
We get another 100 when 1010 through lanes are completed. And remember, they're not proposed to start till 2023. Okay? So you can see how long the timeline's starting to stretch out already. And then the third phase is we get the whatever residual lots once Jesse is connected or let for construction. Okay? So it's kind of a...
Sounds like about 600 lots after it's let.
Well, it could be as high as 600 if we add the apartment complex. Mm-hmm. You know, it's about a 300-unit apartment complex. So I think that will kind of mitigate... The connection of Jesse is really the reason for that we still have the apartments on there. If we didn't think Jesse was ever going to get built, then I think it's more of a townhome site. But I think those 3 steps, the 200 lots on day 1, remember there's all these improvements that have to be built. So the sale of lots is what's paying for the Jesse improvements, it's paying for the pump station, it's paying for all the internal and all external improvements.
So, Mr. Rhodes, what do you think about timing the Colby Chase with the options currently in the plan, option 1 and option 2, about the lots being released? I think they had conditions with Jesse Drive being connected. What do you think about waiting to open the Colby Chase
Well, I think you're,
in conjunction
I think
with
we're
those options?
missing the fact that Colby Chase can be built tomorrow. The town can go out and build tomorrow. The owner of the property can build Colby Chase tomorrow if he wants to make the connection for police and fire across.
About the Marion.
Right.
Keeping that closed and blocked off in conjunction with your option 1 and option 2 that you have with the releasing of lots. Here's my concern. I don't want construction traffic rolling in the backside through Marion because it's easy. It's just downhill off of Smith Road to get in the backside.
So we will definitely do it to get the opening of the north-south collector street.
How about we keep it closed until you get DeZola built, because then you can come in through DeZola.
What do you... I mean, guys, unfortunately, I apologize, Mr. Whitehead is actually in Panama.
Sure, he gave you
So-
guys full authority to make it.
He did. I'm trying to think if there's reasons why we wouldn't close it. I mean, I don't see there being a reason not to agree to close it till DeZola's connected. I think the bigger concern is more safety from the town, but, I mean, I don't see there being a
The biggest concern
reason.
is that neighborhood safety, right? I mean, you saw how small those streets are.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, they're county subdivision streets. I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong. I'm not saying it's better or saying it's worse. I mean, honestly, from a connection out to Smith Road, I don't have a problem if you guys want to require Colby Chase to stay closed. If you guys close it yourself, if we turn it over to the town of Apex when it's completed and you put up Jersey barriers, that's your decision to close it.
I mean, town staff, do we have any plans with Colby Chase in Marion as far as road improvements? I mean, if we're gonna make it a connection across, do we have any plans to improve?
Marion is a DOT road. We have no authority over that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Mr. Moore,
Zola would be a town road, is that correct?
that's correct. And Mr. Moore, to touch on that real quick, Marion subdivision is a county subdivision. They have issues with water every summer, watering grass, running out of water, whatever. So we've actually talked to them about bringing them into the town of Apex, upgrading their water system, and the cost was going to be some unreasonable amount for each property owner. So we actually backed away from it. So that's why the improvements that we talk about on Marion, east of Colby Crossing, Colby Chase, are kind of unrealistic because they're in the county, they're county subdivision, they don't pay Apex taxes. So for Apex to go in there and take them over and pay to upgrade the roads, you have to bring them into the town. To bring them into the town, they have to agree to pay the additional fees and services that Apex
Right.
requires from everybody else.
To your point, I don't think if we're gonna bring Horton Park into the town, we should be running construction traffic through a county neighborhood.
Well, Jesse Drive's a county street. Jesse Drive is going to be built to town standards, but the town is not going to take over Jesse Drive. That's going to be a DOT street. 55's a DOT street, 1010's a DOT street, US 1's a DOT street. So we have these standards, we have these these roads that are all DOT streets, county subdivision streets. So the connections are shown on the transportation plan. We're making that connection per the transportation plan. Now, Mr. Moore, back to your question about when it opens, I'm up for discussions. I don't think the town can go out and block the road off. We can block the road off. I don't have a problem either way. So once we turn over the town of Apex as a completed street, it's your street to block off or to open as necessary. You can put a gate up.
We're talking
There have been
about
past discussions about gates.
We're talking Colby Chase though, right?
That's correct. There's been past discussions about gates up on US 64, so,
But it's still a state road.
well, it's a
Maybe it's built to our standard, but it's still a state road.
It's our road until it ends, right?
That's correct.
Very transition.
It'll be an Apex
Okay, that
road.
one little part that hasn't been built would be an Apex road.
Well, everything actually west of Marion will be an Apex road. Through
Yeah.
Colby Crossing,
Yeah.
through
I
Pemberley,
understand.
through Miramont will all be Apex standard streets.
Conjunction with that.
So you'll have full control over all of those. So at that point, it can be closed by the town and any Jersey barriers or gates, so.
Let me explore this just for 1 second. Councilman Moyer, I want to make sure that, that you hear this, sorry. I want to make sure you hear this answer, but let me just verify with the town manager. If the council decided we wanted as a council to put up a barricade, as Mr. Roach has indicated, at the eastern end of the new street, the new extension, if you will, would that be a problem for us to do? Regardless of development, could we put that there until we were ready to remove it? I want to make sure that the implication or the assertion is true.
I believe that to be true. We would need to check with the team, but I believe that to be true.
But a council decision could be to put barricades up there until we deemed a good time to remove them.
I believe that to be true.
Okay.
I can't say it 100% because we've not faced this before.
Sure.
You left yourself asleep out.
Yeah, I believe that to be the case.
Well, so if I could follow up on that question then, so Councilman Moyer, the condition that was offered was to block the street until the north-south connections are all made. At that time, if the council wished to either keep or add or replace barricades with something else, what I'm hearing is we could make that decision as a council, and whether that's 18 months from now or I don't know 12 months from now, I don't know, but that's an option for us if traffic is a problem. I don't know that I guess maybe my point is I don't know that for that part I don't know that we need to hold the developer to that standard.
What sort of, I guess, could we get some sort of guarantee that council will look at that situation when that north-south collector is turned over to
I think we could ask staff to put it on their long-range calendar and they would bring it back to us at an appropriate time.
Because my ultimate concern, right, Mayor, is that
Sure.
north-south collector is built, but then all the construction traffic comes down through
Sure.
Marion.
Absolutely.
And builds the backside, the south of that project, up that way instead of the other way.
Yeah.
The other way being Jesse.
Jesse down to the north-south collector, it's all gonna just come down the road.
If part of our decision tonight is to ask staff to do that, they absolutely can put that on their long-range calendar, set up in a reminder for next year or whenever the appropriate time is. Yeah.
Well, you're directing.
So, and during the planning board, if I can interject, during the planning board meeting, I think it was stated that north-south collector street was gonna be built from both sides, that the idea was to work both from Jesse Drive and from the south, keeping in mind that, just also point out with the barricade blocking Marion, all this construction traffic for the pump station, for the roads would be coming through Miramont and Pemberley subdivisions, which are Town of Apex subdivisions. In addition, road construction for the north-south collector street would be coming along Jesse and down. So there are subdivisions on both sides of this gap in Colby Chase.
The subdivisions to the west are town roads and town standard roads, right?
They are town standard roads.
Sidewalks and that,
Sidewalks.
if I remember correctly, they have
Curb
sidewalks
gutters.
over there. They do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But by keeping Colby blocked off, then besides coming in from that side that you just mentioned, we still looking at Jesse Drive traffic, forcing all the traffic to go there for the most part. Certainly.
By closing Colby, the traffic has to come from somewhere. We can't fly them in as much as I would like to, because then there would be no complaints. It's just unreasonable.
Be noise.
The good thing is that most of what's that?
Be noise complaints from the helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. The good thing is most of the equipment that once it gets on site, it stays on site. And with the technology nowadays, most trees that are taken down are not hauled off, they're ground on site. The stumps are ground up on site, they're used as mulch and fill, recycled on site. So there will be equipment going in and out of the site. I'm not gonna lie to you. So everybody here lives in a house that was built at some point. It was a construction site. This one just happens to be in an area that's infill. People have developed around this property. So we have to get them in somehow. It's Jesse, it's Pemberley, it's Marion subdivision, it's DeZola. Those are the ways into the property. So we will do everything we can to minimize impact on them, but by closing off Marion access, we're got to open up somewhere else to come in. So.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, again, we're talking about two different quality of roads and sidewalks and developments that we're talking about, right? Through the west side of this project versus the east side, or coming down from the north. So, you said you were applying for a stoplight on day one at Jesse and 1010, but it has to meet certain thresholds. Where do you anticipate, in your experience, there being a stoplight at?
Can I turn it over to my traffic engineer to answer that one? I don't claim to be a traffic expert. I'll turn it over to Josh Ranke to talk about the warrants that need to be met to get a signal, so.
And as Mr. Ranke comes, let me just ask, Mr. Ranke, since you haven't spoken yet, please introduce yourself. And if you could, confine your response to the question.
You got it.
All right.
Josh Ranke with Ramey Kemp & Associates, registered professional engineer in the state of North Carolina. I performed the traffic analysis on this. In terms of the signal warrants, they look at different things. It is the DOT's ultimate call. Warrants just mean it meets thresholds. It doesn't mean it mandates or anything like that. So if there are safety concerns or anything like that, they can kind of hang their hat on that. So there are volume thresholds. Peak hours are most typically met, especially with residential, because they have those high peak periods in the AM and PM. And then there are longer 4 and 8 hour thresholds. That usually, when you have bigger developments, there is a longer period of traffic. So there are volume warrants, there are crash warrants, so there are different things that are looked at to decide whether or not a signal is warranted. Now, once again, the DOT could say even if it doesn't meet those warrants, there are concerns they have, but typically they like to follow and make sure that it does meet the warrants to install a traffic signal.
So in your experience, what do you think, how do you think this intersection fares?
The reason we said to monitor it for signalization is it's hitting those peak hour warrants. It definitely looks like it would be needed out there. It's definitely needed to get the gaps in traffic to allow the minor street traffic to enter 1010. And in those cases, we always will say, it starts to become a safety concern. If people don't have those gaps, they're riskier behavior to get out there. So it's something where we say we definitely want to look at that closer. And you kind of need to, in terms of what we look at, we have 5 adjacent developments that we're projecting out. We have a growth rate. And so when we're looking at all those things, if it doesn't grow to that period, when we're looking that far ahead, it's kind of tough to do a signal warrant now and say traffic's going to be exactly the same then. It's likely that it would, and that's why we say monitor, do the signal warrant, then it's likely to hit we know it'll hit those peak periods, and then it's DOT's call to say, yep, that's something we want to see installed there.
And Mr. Moore, we are doing traffic, intersection improvements there as well?
Correct.
So they all have to be reviewed and approved by DOT. At that same time, we've already talked to Josh about submitting for the warrants at that first submittal to DOT.
And that is left turn lane in, an additional lane coming out, and a right turn lane in there.
That's
So kind of to go along with that safety concern.
Thanks, Josh.
Anything else?
All right, thank you, Mr. Ranke. All right, we're still in council discussion.
I do have a question for Russell, potentially. Jesse Drive, how long has Jesse Drive being a connection over to, from 1010 to 55, been on our, I guess tip would be the right analogy?
It's not been programmed in a year's funding yet, in our approved CIP, but we have it in our draft application for this coming year, for 18-19 study and design, and then 19-20 construction.
How long ago in the past was the vision created for Jesse Drive to connect all the way over?
That dates back since before I've been here.
I came here in 1999, and I believe it was planned back then. It's been a very long time that there was a desire to have Jesse Drive go across. There's a water line there that's generally in the vicinity of where the road would go, and I don't know what year that water line was put in, but it's been a long time.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Well, so I would like to say a few things. I appreciate the applicant making a condition on closing Colby Chase. This has been probably a year in the works, I think, as long as I have met with Mr. Whitehead and made this project better and made these changes that we're seeing today come to fruition. So this has been a long time coming, that we've been working on this. This is part of what I see and what I have talked to people about with strategic and development growth of Apex. This seems like responsible growth. This Jesse Drive has been a vision of Apex for a long time, as long as we can all remember connecting all the way over there. So I think this is going to bring tremendous value to this area of Apex. I think we're going to see significant increases in property values over there for future development. That the current homeowners will have a decision to make. Right? Is the price right for them to sell and see future development on this property? So I am in support of this project, and I appreciate all the hard work. I would like to say that when that north-south collector is built, that we, as a council, whoever is we at that time, votes on the Colby Chase remaining closed to keep construction traffic from going in that way until they have other ways to get into their development.
Is that a motion? It sounds like you're making a motion.
It will be a motion. I didn't want to take anybody else's opportunity to say.
Okay.
Do you want to include the amendments that were offered?
Well, let me ask, I just want to be clear.
That is a motion with the amendments offered, and yes.
Okay, so I have a motion for approval with all the conditions that were presented and the 2 new conditions as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we got a second.
Mayor, if I can clarify, there was also a land use map amendment in addition to that rezoning, so is that also a motion?
Okay, let's
to approve
make sure.
the land use map amendment?
And the land use map amendment, I assume that is part of, the modification that's required for this, is that part of your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, all right. So that's been accepted. That's currently the motion on the table. Any discussion on the motion of approval?
I'll just say I concur with Wes's comments. No doubt this project does present some challenges, but I think a lot of people are working very hard to kind of address the concerns as best they can. I do recognize it's an emotional issue, and I don't take that away from anyone here. But I think it's as far as projects go, it's I think a good one. I think the concerns are being addressed as the best that anybody can address them. Otherwise, this land would totally remain vacant. So I'm in support of this project.
Any other comments?
Well, I guess I'm the outlier a bit on this. I still have some fundamental problems, frankly. I think I know we didn't bring this up, but the density is really jamming it in as tight as you can for our land use plan. I understand that we allow for that, and if you're going to bring people into the area, you kind of want a high density situation, but this is a high density stretch situation. I still am troubled that the parcel that's out of this development does not provide for connectivity in a rapid way. I think that we really need to go north through that parcel. But it just comes down to, it's awful high density development basically within a more rural area. I know it's infill, but it's infill into a rural area, not infill into someplace that's already been highly developed. I could support it in many respects, but I just think it's too early. Now, certainly this is going to take 5 years to develop out, but I still find it to be, I don't see all this stuff, the stars line up for my supporting it tonight. I could maybe support it in 6 months if things were changed and if I was assured that there were connectivity to the north, but I'm stuck on that.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Do you have anything?
Sure. When I have issues and wonder what to do, oftentimes I rely on the professional staff that goes out there and puts their work into this and analyzes it, and the staff is approving this, and planning board approves it. I appreciate the conditions about closing Colby Chase, and I appreciate all that you guys have done, so I am going to support this.
All right, everybody's had a chance. If it's all right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
All right, that passes by a vote of 3-1. Public hearing number 1 is now concluded. Public hearing number 2 has been withdrawn. At this time, I think this will be a good opportunity for a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back